So here's a quick PowerPoint to go along with the lab that you did in class today, and there'll be a short online quiz at testmos.com when you're done. So what is the atmosphere? The atmosphere is a layer of gases that surrounds the Earth, which is a protective boundary between Earth and space, and it provides the conditions for life on Earth. Because if there were no atmosphere, we would not be able to survive on our planet. So there's 4 layers of the atmosphere. The layer closest to where we live, the layer that directly surrounds the Earth, is called the Troposphere. The next layer up is called the Stratosphere. The next layer up is called the Mesosphere. And finally, the uppermost layer is the Thermosphere. A mnemonic to remember these layers from the outside in is thigh-most, and I'll explain why some of the letters are lowercase and some of the letters are uppercase as we move on. So the last T, which is capitalized in thigh-most, stands for troposphere. That's that T right there. It's the layer that's closest to the Earth's surface, and it's where all of our weather takes place. And the troposphere is warmer at the bottom and colder on top. And we recognize that because we know that when you climb to the top of a mountain or when you go to a higher altitude, it's always colder up there than it is down below where we live closer to the surface. Weather is the conditions of the atmosphere in a specific place and time. The conditions can include wind, temperature, cloudiness, moisture, air pressure, and a lot of other things that we'll be learning about over the next couple of weeks. The composition of the air surrounding Earth, our atmosphere, is mostly nitrogen and oxygen, and also some water vapor. Most people tend to think that our atmosphere is predominantly oxygen because that's what we breathe, but it's actually 78% nitrogen and just about 21% oxygen. That last 1% or so is argon, other gases, carbon dioxide, and the amount of water vapor in the air is variable because if you think about it, sometimes air is more humid and sometimes air is less humid. Think about the summer when it's hot and sticky and humid compared to the winter when the air is dry. So that water vapor amount changes. The second layer up from the inside is the stratosphere, and that's the S in thigh-most, the capital S. The top contains the ozone layer, and the ozone layer is what absorbs UV light that keeps it from reaching us down here on Earth. And because the ozone layer up here is capturing that UV light, it makes the top of the stratosphere warmer than the bottom of that stratosphere. So that's why the top of the stratosphere is warmer, is because of the ozone layer. You may remember in the graph we did in class today how that line zigzagged back and forth. Well, there's a reason why that temperature changes all the time. And the temperature change in the stratosphere is due to the ozone layer. And the ozone layer is the lowercase o in thigh-most. So the stratosphere, the top of the stratosphere has the ozone layer, and that's what that lowercase o stands for. And here's the ozone layer. And again, those UV rays are getting absorbed, and here's the O in thigh-most that stands for ozone layer. The mesosphere is the next layer up, and that's the capital M in thigh-most. It's warm on the bottom because it's next to the ozone layer, which, if you remember, I drew in before in green like this. It's next to the ozone layer, which makes it warm down there near the ozone layer, and it's colder on top. In the mesosphere, Meteors, there's another M, burn up here as they fall into Earth. So the reason why all this space debris like rocks and meteors and things like that don't end up on Earth is because as they come through the mesosphere, they burn up and disintegrate. The thermosphere is that top layer. Whoops, go back to red. That top layer, and it's TH. So you remember therm as opposed to just the T, which is troposphere. So the thermosphere is the highest layer. It's closest to the sun. It's cold on the bottom because it's next to the mesosphere, and it's hot on top. Why do you think? Because there's nothing really protecting the top of the thermosphere from the sun. So it gets all those sun's rays, and it gets really hot on top, like 1,000 degrees Celsius. And this is a nice picture that shows you what's happening and what happens in all these different layers of the atmosphere. And so now the only letter we haven't looked at in Thymos is this lowercase I. And the lowercase I stands for Ionosphere. And that's the lower part of the thermosphere. It's a region of ions. If you remember back from chemistry, ions are atoms that have a different charge, a different number of electrons than protons. And gases that can conduct electricity like happens in the ionosphere is what gives us the northern lights, aurora borealis. And that happens, aurora borealis happens in the ionosphere. So here's a graph that should look a lot like the graph that you made in class today. And it shows you the temperatures as they change. So in the troposphere, we start here with a higher temperature and it decreases as we go up. Then we've got this space where the temperature doesn't change at all. And we call that the tropopause. It's the space, the boundary between the troposphere and the stratosphere. The pause is always named for the layer below it. Then in the stratosphere, temperature goes up because what's at the top of the stratosphere? The ozone layer. That ozone layer that's absorbing all those UV rays, okay? That's at the top of the stratosphere. That's why the top of the stratosphere is hotter. And again, there's a little pause, a stratopause there, which is where the temperature stays about the same until it switches back the other way. Mesosphere, temperature drops significantly, way down. Okay. And again, there's a pause here, the mesopause. And then finally, temperature goes way up. Not a very straight line in the thermosphere because there's really nothing is protecting the thermosphere from the sun's rays. So that is the end of the presentation. I will see you in class tomorrow, and don't forget to take the quiz. Bye.